please welcome Robert Schwartzman. See you later.
Thank you.
So, before we get into anything else, I mean, many of you probably know that Rod had a real health issue. Last year?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, last year.
And could you just give it an update how he's doing?
Yeah, when I met the band, they were on the road constantly, and I thought it was so cool. It was so inspiring. I think it's inspiring for young musicians to see the film and see that these guys just kept doing what they loved, and they still do what they're loving. Because when Colin left our LA, we finished sort of an LA tour, or a tour of the US, then we finished in LA. He was going back to meet up with Rod in the studio because Rod had written a new song to start potentially a new Zombies album. So they're just still doing what they love, and they have the setup to make music when they want to make music the way they want to make it. But yeah, so Rod, I think because when you tour, touring's a very tiring. It's hard on your body to tour. It's hard for anyone to tour. But these guys just were always on the road. I thought it was so inspiring, and we shot some of this movie while I started a band when I was in high school called Rooney, and Rooney was inspired by the Zombies and a lot of British invasion music. But so it was so cool to make a movie about a band that inspired me to make music in the first place and tour and shoot the movie while on tour with them. Pretty cool, roads colliding. But so I was with them on the road. I got to see how they traveled and the whole vibe. But there's such a great presence. There's I went backstage with them, and there's just such a calmness there with those guys, and they're in a groove. And I found that to be really inspiring. But yes, I'm answering. This is the longest answer to your question. Rod's doing okay. He's adjusting his lifestyle to support this next chapter in his life, not touring, and doing what's best for him and his family, and focus on a new way of getting to still do music with the people he loves in a way that can support his health and so on. So yeah, but he's in great spirits. He plays, he was at, the film opened in the UK not long ago. He was there to support it. He was out showing his love for it and speaking on behalf of the film. So yeah, he's there. It's great.
So unlike Phineas in the movie, one of us on the stage here was around to hear the Zombies when they were on the radio in the 60s. It wasn't you. It was amazing. But I'm always curious about something like this. How did you, a generation younger, come to love the Zombies music? How did it come into your life? When did you first hear it? How did it come to you?
I mean, I think we're in a room full of different generations of music listeners, so probably we all have our own stories of how we found bands we love, or if this band. But I grew up in Los Angeles, so the city we live in. We're in it right now. But some cities, when you go on the road, some cities don't have a certain sort of culture around discovering great things. Music venues would be like a place to hear great music, or movie theaters to watch movies. Like that's on the decline, unfortunately. Some cities don't have movie theaters really anymore. It's strange. But so yeah, I was fortunate. I grew up in a city where you were exposed to such great music and great films and all these things. So that's one step to discovering the people before you who made exciting things. And I grew up in a musical household of classical musicians. They were all classical composers and conductors and orchestral musicians. So that turned me on to orchestral music and a sensitivity to the way that music is arranged and how exciting it was to go experience live orchestras and things like that. So maybe that was a little bit of something mixed with rock and roll, because I really I'm a big, really like late 50s, 60s, early pop into the sort of like Brill building world of wonderful songwriters who were young, who were I mean, Carole King was a teenager writing for teenagers. It was interesting when you have young kids writing for kids. It was kind of interesting. But that was as you guys all know, that was the beginning of pop music. And then, with the ability to record and sell music, changed from selling sheet music to selling recorded music. And then you have a real business. But then you have the British invasion of bands that really were taking in the music scene from America and then creating their own version of what they felt. They say it in the film. Interesting to hear how nervous they were to play in New York for the first time, feeling they were just copying like American music and they were just going to be hated. Because now, in a lot of ways, British, obviously, music is so influential for today's young bands that maybe people feel the other way, that you're imitating them when you go there. But yeah, but yeah, sorry, long story again. How did I find the band? I just love music, and I love songs. I love great songwriting. I'm a melodic listener when I listen to music, and there was something about the Zombies music that just really was just so different from the other. I mean, there were so many great bands out of Britain in that era, so there's a lot I could point to, but just the Zombies consistently made such unique, such hooky music, but it was just different. There were such great curveballs in their music that kept you stimulated, and it was unusual at times how they wrote. And Colin's voice with Rod's style of playing, I think the whole band had something that unique to offer as a whole band of these 5 musicians that I think made them so special. But I listened to a lot of music growing up. I'm a big sort of, I'm all over the place with my music listening, but it usually comes down to like something that it just feels different melodically, musically, that pulls you in. And yeah, but I loved that band so much. I just remember going to high school, driving in LA to school every day, listening to the Zombies, and then I started a band around that time. So yeah, that's a long story.
Let's get a little nerdy about the music here, since you are a musician.
Yeah, let's get nerdy.
Yeah, and break it down a little bit. Well, I mean, the Zombies did sound different than again, as somebody who heard it come out of the radio at the time when Motown was happening, the Beatles, Petula Clark, whatever else was going on at the time, Yardbirds and all that. It sounded different. How would you break it down as to what they did, especially sort of those standout hits, those ones and the Odyssey and Oracle album? What were the elements that they were bringing in that other people weren't?
Well, I think that the music was, Time of the Season. It's funny, Colin says it wasn't his favorite song that became a hit. And it is funny, sometimes songs are missed as the single, and you put the wrong single out and your album doesn't work anymore, and you don't get a second shot. Time of the Season's we just toured together, and I supported Colin on this tour where I was his Zombies, and we performed live in the theater where we just screened the Zombies movie. So I got to learn all these songs, and when you learn music and you feel it, you see what's going on chordally and musically. So, there is a simplicity at times to some of those more, tell or no and things like that, very specific kind of way of writing. That feels a little more girl groupy, kind of that Shirelles-y kind of way of writing. But that was what they were listening to. And then there are times like songs like Hung Up on a Dream that are they go off in these wonderful tangents musically that are very sophisticated and classical. But if I can geek out with you guys, there is a book called This Is Your Brain on Music, if anyone's read it. There's this idea of stability and novelty in songwriting where your brain is stimulated by stability and novelty in everything. So things that become familiar and stable, and then something unusual that is introduced is very exciting to us. And even in movies, the way you edit a movie, you can create stability and novelty in structure. But when you think about that in music, I think the Zombies are a perfectly good example of that idea, because there's something musically very consistent and stable and familiar to us, and then they introduce something completely unusual that takes you on a slight tangent musically, but it's very stimulating, I think, as a listener to hear that in the music. So that would be a technical thing. That would be like a science response. But yeah, anyway, but we could talk about that for a long time.
They had those, those jazz breaks in there, the keyboard stuff in particular.
Exactly, yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of that on the radio at the time. There was, Ramsey Lewis or whoever a little bit, but that, to me, that's what always stands out, and even more so now, hearing that, it's just going like, you don't get that. Maybe you got it after. Queen was mentioned as the band that was influenced. Anybody else that you would look at that you think shows the influence that they had, the impact? Rooney, as you said.
Like, you mean other bands that were influenced by them?
Yeah, that.
There's so many bands. It's so interesting because in that film too, you see bands. You see Post Malone or Dave Grohl or all these different bands that are totally different musical styles that are influenced by the Zombies. Yeah. It's a real. I mean, also I got to spend a lot of time with with Johnny Ramone, and he was a huge Zombies fan. I mean, like a lot of punk rock bands, I think also love the Zombies. There's a certain edge about them that those bands loved. I mean, a lot of those bands loved sort of like bubblegum music was a big thing with punk bands. It was very simple, straight ahead kind of music, which was more about the attitude and that was what made it punk. But the Zombies were such a big, they just kind of like worked in so many different movements. Like that, there aren't a lot of bands that come along that just kind of, you find listeners that just love them across multiple genres. Usually people stay in a lane, but I do think they were in their own lane, and I think it inspired a lot of different kinds of music. And also what they did after the band when it broke up. I mean, Argent's a whole other kind of band. I think there's something really exciting there. But also, Hugh Grundy wasn't a traditional drummer. He was in a marching band, and he applied. Playing drums is not easy to do it well, and he plays really. He was a really good drummer. The way he fills and his time is so unusual. The way he approaches arranging drums, that I think. Again, these guys just found that magical thing that happens in life where you just meet the right person at the right time and you just say yes and it just works. All of it just completely works as a piece.
The music alone obviously is not enough to get you to devote a good chunk of your life to documenting, to making this movie. So what compelled you to do that? What drew you in to tell this story?
Yeah. Well, I started, in music. For many years, I made a lot of albums and toured and sort of did the grind of being in a band. And it's fun. It's a fun grind. And when you're young and you're in a band, it really is a great way to get started because you're figuring your world out and you're also doing what you love. But I also wanted to make movies. And I got to push pause on the sort of constant life that artists live where they make, was that you? Mom? Is my mom here? No. Her alarm always goes off. But when you're usually most bands do this thing where you tour, take a break, make an album, tour, break, and you just do this every 2 years. So for me, I was like, okay, I could do this, but I kind of need to start building these other creative branches, right? So I wanted to focus on getting movies off the ground. So I took the sort of the music way, the indie-minded way of making your own albums, and applied it to making independent features. And I was able to kind of get movies going. But I've directed mostly feature narratives, so scripted films, and you're telling stories on a page. You're developing them, and then you're telling those stories. So getting to make a documentary, I really wanted to make, for my first doc, I wanted to make a music doc because it felt close to home for me as a musician. And then if you're going to make anything independently, you should really absolutely love what you're going to do, because usually you have to be the one to create the keep the fire burning. This movie wasn't made for a studio, by a studio. It wasn't plucked out of thin air by a streamer, and I'm not knocking that way of making things, but that's a whole other way to make stuff, right? We made this with a lot of people coming together with the passion to tell a story about a band we love, the same way the Zombies made their music, right? We made this movie in a similar type of way. But for me, you have to tell stories you love. In the room, Rick Krim is here. Rick Krim, when Rooney was out promoting albums, Rick was at VH1. He played our video a lot and supported us as a band. And that led to our friendship growing and then saying, hey, I'm making movies now. Rick was now entering a new side of his career on the sort of music crossover into film. And I said, man, the one movie I wish I could make would be the Zombies documentary. I'm so bummed, because I had heard someone was making one, and I think there was stops and starts to another documentarian that started shooting, but it wasn't quite figured out how they were going to continue the film. So I was able to step in and begin this project with a certain perspective, and it was getting Rod and Colin to buy in and believe in it that was the spark that we needed.
Was it tough to get them involved in it? Did you?
So hard. Those guys were so mean.
Yeah, they seem like
Yeah,
really tough.
they were we had to make them look good in this movie. No, they were so nice. It was, we were all living through a COVID shutdown. Usually the movie industry was like, well, what are we going to do? Movie theaters are closed. How are people going to make movies? Music artists were streaming their songs and trying to find an alt way to make money. It was that time. I think it was the end of 2021. Rick and I spoke, and Cindy and Chris from the Rocks management, were working alongside the band to figure out the best way to get a movie going. So just to be able to share that, like, this is how we would do it, builds confidence in partners to figure out maybe this could be a great route. I Zoomed with those guys. They were in England. They were super kind on the Zoom. I don't know what, they can't tell me right to my face on a Zoom, like, let's do this. But I think we left the meeting, everybody feeling very positive and optimistic about this route. And the next year, we were filming in New York City, where the movie started. Funny enough, yeah, we started shooting on a stage in New York where we tried to recreate the She's Not There Hullabaloo music performance. Mm-hmm. So we tried to create a set that was familiar to their career, which is where most of those interviews take place. But really cool that the Zombies' career in the US was launched out of New York. And the movie started filming in New York. And we took them to Brooklyn to film in that church because we wanted a pipe organ to create that opening of The Way I Feel Inside that was conceptual as an opening. So yeah, that's how it was, one brick at a time. But yeah, anyway.
How much of their story did you know when you started this?
I knew the story from sort of a very basic music listener level. Maybe some of you in the room learned more about this band than you didn't than ever before, and I think we all love this music. But the basic stuff, we go into a story maybe knowing some of the basic stuff. And I think for a documentary, for me, I want to give some history and some context to the viewer, because some people are watching this movie have no idea who the band is really, right? So I want, you want the next generation to discover the band the way I discovered them too. You want them to fall in love with them. But sorry, give me the question one more time. Sorry, I'm off.
How much of the story you knew before
you
started this?
Yeah, so making a documentary for me, and there maybe there's other filmmakers here, but with a scripted project, you have a blueprint. With a documentary, you have sort of an idea in your mind of what the blueprint is, but you have to be open, I think, and willing to discover while you're shooting. Because in an interview, you learn something new and interesting that leads you down another road to open up that thread and follow it to see where it goes. So a lot of this film was the New York interview gave us the foundation to open up the story so we knew what we were building on. And then we got to fly. We went to England. We went to Abbey Road, went to their homes. We came in with a whole new set of questions, having learned what we learned in New York. But yes, so much was discovered as we went, which I think is the fun of it, because we're sort of an investigative sort of journalist finding our way through the story. And obviously there's 60 plus years of a career. There's so much more we did learn or had cut and assembled and did not keep in the final cut. We had a South by Southwest premiere. It was almost 20 minutes longer than the cut you guys just watched. So there was a lot of stuff in there that just didn't feel like it kind of helped us, or some great stories, but we'll put that on like a DVD and something like that.
What was the biggest discovery, the biggest surprise to you in the course of doing this about the band?
Well, I mean, I just like history, and I like music history, and I like getting more context. Because you can listen to a lot of music, but you just don't know. I love to know who came when and who influenced who, and as if you were there. But for me, discovering, and maybe you guys felt this tonight, well, obviously the personal stuff is huge, right? Like Colin opening up about his past with his family helps me really understand Colin on another level. And it helps me kind of understand just his voice and his whole presence. Like everything that is Colin Blunstone, I think I really felt so much closer to him as a person, as a character, and I really understand him better now on that level. Same with Rod too, just having those guys open up. I mean, I talk about this sometimes for me, I was looking for controversy at times because I wanted to find conflict, because you want something in the storyline that like pulls, oh my God, like that happened. The conflict was really in their own career, having all this sort of headwind in the industry as young artists in the 60s, dealing with a genre that people didn't think would last long. Like I didn't know that people thought rock and roll was just going to be a short-lived thing. Like I guess in my mind, rock and roll has been around for so long, I didn't think of it as just maybe it could be a flash in the pan genre. So I guess I get why all these artists were screwed over, because all these business, all the people working in the industry also were probably navigating a new business that they weren't they were discovering at the same time. So maybe he says it, had he taken a long-term approach, maybe we could have had a different approach with the career. But so that was interesting to understand. Oh, I guess this was viewed a certain way by these publishers and labels and managers and agents, which is why certain artists had these experiences that were unfortunate, which is you find common in stories from this era. Um, but understanding what it felt like to be a British invasion band in the U.S. on the same stage as all these amazing American artists. He describes the feeling he had watching those artists side stage and having to go out there. It's like you're really there with those guys. So that really hit me. It was pretty impactful for me.
And then there was the Neil MacArthur episode,
That's
which
insane.
which could be a movie itself.
Totally, the fake zombies. There's so many. I mean, even like the Searching for Sugarman story is such a great story. Weirdly, like it's in this story, like the going to the Philippines and finding out you're like the biggest arena rock band ever, and you're being paid £10. I mean, it's insane. Like they have so many stories wrapped up in their story. Like these micro stories are so powerful. Colin going from like having a #1 hit in the U.S. to them kind of putting their pennies together to get some time at Abbey Road and using every second they could just to squeeze out whatever music they could. And they had to, obviously when you rehearse music, you go in a studio and you're ready to go. But sometimes in a studio, you discover things. The Beatles seem to have the luxury of just having a lot of time to experiment in the studio. So this band seemed to have to just like really figure it out and go in and cut it and get out of there. So they had to be really precise. But working at the insurance company, Hugh's storyline, almost signing Queen, Paul signing ABBA and all these bands. I mean, they've touched so many things. It's so great. And then finding themselves like all these years later and finding that love again and getting the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's such a crazy, fairy tale kind of ending.
It's interesting that several of them, well, most of them went into other phases of the music business. Everybody but Colin really became, whether it was producer or A&R or whatever. I mean, the experience that they had with their own band must have been a huge foundation for that, an incentive to do it right. Maybe that's what it felt like to me. Is that what it seemed like to you as well?
Say that, yes.
Maybe they had these rough experiences in the music business themselves, and then they went into different phases of the music business later. Like they must have felt that almost like they were righting somebody else's wrongs by. Hopefully, they were.
No, that's true. That totally was a thought along the way, which was that had they not had these struggles or these experiences, they were able to take those struggles and then turn it around and support artists the right way. And I think that's kind of how life works. That's the way you want it to work, which is you take something valuable and pass it on and do it the right way, and you can help someone else. So I just find it's like how the universe writes it all out, and it just makes so much sense. But it's amazing. Yeah, like Paul's career and his impact. He must have seen all. He must have thought back when he left the band and took a normal job and all these things about he must have started putting the pieces together in his mind of all these ways things could have been done differently, and that was valuable information for him to really support artists the right way. So yeah, it's true. It's really amazing that they had the ability to have impact in other ways outside of just music.
Was there anything in the courses that was hard to get them to open up about?
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like there wasn't something in the edit where I was like, I wish this had happened or that. I think I went in with the pieces I needed. I mean, tactically, I really was. I think usually when bands break up, they don't like each other anymore. Usually bands don't like each other. Usually. Or if they get really big, it's almost sometimes you sacrifice something along the way. It's so sad sometimes where bands get so big and they can't even tour in the same bus anymore or something. They have to they can't even be in the same room with each other. It's so wild to think about that on some human level, because music is an ultimate unifier of all. I think most art forms. It really brings people together. to imagine creating music with people that you really connect with, making some amazing music, and then just can never like look at them in the eyes anymore. I guess that makes sense because it's so emotional, and you have so much history together. But um, yeah, I mean, I guess I think the beauty of this story is that these guys went through all this stuff, but at the end of the day, I always say when I introduce the movie, I didn't say it tonight, but this is a movie about friendship. This is a music documentary, but at the heart of it, it's a story about friendship, and it's about hope. And I think there's a lot of movies and a lot of music things that can kind of bring us down, but I think it's important films have the power to lift us up and make us feel hopeful when we leave the room. So I'm happy this movie gives that feeling of hope and connection, but I think it's a great lesson for bands too to see films like this where it shows you can go through these times and ups and downs, but you do have to stay the course, and there can be a sort of something great at the end of this if we kind of stick it out. But it's very unique to have a band come out the other side and remain this tight friendship, this unit that they had when they were growing up as school kids. That's a very rare connection to have. But it speaks, I think the answer in my mind is obviously when you go through hard times, you come out the other side and hopefully you're stronger from it and you can find a way to, build you up in a way that maybe you're better off in some ways. But I do think that this band is so genuinely, they love music so much. Like, not every artist does music because they love it. But some artists like really like, if there's a guitar in the room, they're picking it up. If there's a piano, they're sitting down at it. No matter where you are in your career with success or no success, you've just got to be making music. Those guys, I think that's this band. And they happen to have music that was impactful. But I think the heartbeat of this band is just the true, sincere, genuine love of music.
Having Paul's daughter in it was a really good touch too.
That was at the bus. That was we were in England and we didn't have anyone really to speak on behalf of Paul, and his daughter was living in London, and we emailed her like the night before, and she said, "I'll come in." Totally lucky that she was there at that time. She was amazing.
Yeah, she was a really good addition to it because she had this other perspective on it all that it didn't seem disconnected from it. It felt like very, very connected, but in a way that the other guys couldn't really give because she came from a different place in it. So that was really great. For your own music now, having done this, are you finding yourself newly inspired in new ways to create? How is doing this movie? I mean, we know how the zombies impact you in the first place. How did doing this movie impact you in music?
Yeah, I mean, I think about musicians. Well, I feel I am an audience member watching this movie with everyone. So, although I was able to direct it and guide it, I feel like I'm just watching it. So I think about how it affects me just as a viewer and as a musician and film and all these things. And I think about how other musicians might have their own response to this film. But for me, it's just like there are times I think you go, you get signed, you feel pressure to have to write hit songs. It's just the industry has a certain effect on, I think, artists. But when you get to see stories of just the reminder of like what it's all about is really important. So yeah, it's inspiring in that way. It makes me want to go make a new album and those kinds of things. And there's so many bands I love who still tour, and I love the band ELO very much. And I got to Rooney open for ELO last year on their farewell tour, and getting to go out with ELO was a reminder again of the sort of joy of creating music. Funny that Colin's first solo record was opening for ELO, and then we got to do their farewell to their last tour. So it was interesting to bookend ELO with Colin. But so those moments are a reminder of just like, just obviously keep making music, keep doing what you love. Playing music is so fun and exciting, and it's so great to connect with audiences. So, but Colin just turned 80 in June, and we were just toured together, and he sounded like insanely good. Usually, you can change the key of a song when someone adjust their voice changes over time. You can't hit that high note or whatever. Colin literally is singing like the high harmony of songs in their original key. It's literally insane. And I think it's just he just has a way about his life. He just has a certain way of approaching it. But seeing guys making albums, turning 80, excited to get in the studio and make a new record, it just, yeah, I feel like it should be a great wake up call for all musicians that we can just do it for as long as we're wanting to. So
I think my favorite line in it was Rod saying that, paraphrasing, that you only get to that naivete of youth
I love
once,
that. Yeah,
and that it's incredibly powerful. But it does feel, I mean, especially when you took them back into Abbey Road, which must have been amazing for you to be in there with them. It feels like it's something that he hasn't entirely lost in a really good way, and maybe a message to all of us to hold on to that if we can.
it's true. No, you're absolutely right. It's true. He hasn't lost that. And yeah, he says you only have it once, but it really they haven't let go of that once. And I think maybe how they're able to kind of keep. It's like it's like a power source that never fails, you know. But anyway,
I think it's time to see if we some questions from the house
look at
here.
this cool lighting,
And
everybody.
yeah, yeah. Wow, it's nice being able to see everybody. So we're going to do the best we can to get to whoever might have a question. So let's start with a hand right here. We got one.
Hey, so the first 45 I ever got was bought to me by my brother, and it was She's Not There. And we always talked about this song. By the way, amazing movie. You did a great job. We always talked about who was she.
I don't know. It's a good question. By the way, I'll do the best I can to answer some questions because I'm not. Colin and Rod and those guys speak so well. Like when they're here, that you guys would have a ton of questions for them. I'm not sure. I mean, he kind of goes into how he wrote it and how he plucked those ideas out of thin air and kind of put it together. You know, there was only one person I know who the she was, and that was in Caroline Goodbye. Colin, we played it on this tour together, and he kept saying, "Oh, I wrote it about someone I was seeing named Caroline." And he's like, I shouldn't have used her name because she knows it's about her. And I couldn't find another name that sung right. And anyway, so I know who that Caroline is because he told the story every night. I don't know who the she is, but also when you're writing songs and you're also like a teenager, you're kind of just you love everything and you're in love with everyone. And it's just like everyone's the she.
She's not there. She's not named. So, other questions? Start there, and then we'll go.
Got
here.
two right here. Nice.
Start with-
Yeah, yeah. What? Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you remember, I saw you in San Jose.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I drove all the way down here from Dublin, California, just to see this event.
That's so cool. Thank you for driving out.
But yeah, I had a question about, would you want to do like more like music documentaries in like the future?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like making this. I just making anything is really exciting. So, telling stories and experiencing new things. So I really enjoyed this process. Making docs are really, it's hard. It's different than making movies. Just the amount of that goes into the sort of digging and searching for one photo and chasing that down. You know.
Like a music researcher, like the Beatles,
Yeah.
or one of my favorite bands. My camera roll, or my old phone's camera roll, had like 11,000 photos of just the Beatles and stuff like that. But I thought there's like a couple bands from like even that era that could be cool, like the Turtles or something like that. Like the
There's a good Turtles documentary. Yeah, it's great. It was made a long time ago, but I don't know if sometimes people make many documentaries of the same people. So that was already, someone made that one, but there's maybe another way to tell that story, but that's a good idea. I love the turtle.
the pacing of it, like how it went year by year, and they had all their little like stories in between, and how it even went past their career, like not past it because they're still the zombies, but had their whole like Argent era, their whole like Colin solo, Neil.
MacArthur. We all want to go back and listen to Neil MacArthur.
I have to.
Well, also, Colin sang in a lot of Alan Parsons project stuff. So we didn't get into that stuff, but he had some interesting side projects that no one kind of knew about. But there's so many things in this film for him, anyway. But thank you.
Go ahead.
Kind of a two-part question. First was, I was going to say, what is next for them? I think you mentioned that they wanted to make another album, but like, where do they stand with that? And are there any more appearances with that? And then my second
So what's up? So first question is, what's going on with the guys? What's the latest? I mean, well, by the way, I do the best I can to really cover some of their stuff. What's great about the zombies is, and I know Chris and Cindy, everyone does such a great job of keeping fans informed of what they're doing on socials. If you go on their social media and follow them, there's a lot of activity, so you can catch up. They're always doing something. So very active like band, which is really cool. And Colin, this is like launching a whole new world of Colin's like a solo. He's back to being a solo artist, right? He's exploring his Colin Blunstone stuff. So he's out on the road. He'll probably be in LA. Everyone should go see him when he's back here, but we should look out for the date. And then for the movie, I think it's important to stretch out. Sometimes movies just come out and then they just like disappear. In this world we live in of like instant gratification and couch viewing. Like, so yeah, like this movie, I think music documentaries should be in theaters. I think it's cool to watch these movies in a theater. So, you know, this movie had a great theatrical run, and then it opened in the UK in theaters, and then we did this tour. We've been stretching it out to create as many communal experiences as we can before it hits the digital platforms, because when it hits digital, it's kind of, that's it. You can't take it back. So with that said, it did just come out on Apple and Amazon and all these platforms. So it is available for everyone. Check under your seats, everybody. There's something under there. There is a download code. No, it's out now and you can stream it, but you just saw it here. So, but you could tell people to see it like tonight.
This is actually my second time.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, people can watch it tomorrow, tonight.
It's something like this. It's kind of like playing records. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's active viewing.
Yeah. But I do have friends that haven't been able to make one of these, so.
Oh, cool. Thank you for seeing it again. Awesome. Great.
Over there?
Yes, I wanted to ask about like any psychedelic influence. Like you see the Odyssey and Oracle, like that title, and then it's like misspelled. Was there any like psychedelic drug influence in their music?
You know, it's like I think it was just beginning. I don't know. It's possible I don't know the ins and outs of some of the some of the artists too that were creating around them, the visuals and stuff like that. And we interviewed the artist in it, who's a friend of theirs. But I never got the impression that there was anything like I know for the guys were very like straight as far as like the things that they kept their focus on. It didn't feel like there was experimentation that they were seeking out beyond musical experimentation. But I see definitely I think almost like they were playing into the world they were entering, the sort of change of scenery, like visually. And obviously when you make a record, you're maybe thinking about the album cover, but I'm sure that's a whole other, they were probably so focused on making this music and getting it right with the little bit of money they had that someone else was probably building the visuals around them. Yeah.
We do know that beer had an influence.
Yeah, beer, yeah. Beer was the only thing that was going on.
Any other questions?
Bueller? Yeah, sorry. Oh, Ross Hogarth. Incredible. Good to see you.
You tell me the song on our record that is the Zombies influence.
Yeah, well, yeah, we got to make a record together. There's a song called "I Should Have Been After You." Would you say that one would be? Well, no. I mean, there's a lot of obviously influences can work their way into the music with unexpectedly, but there's so many songs that Blue Side was very much kind of has zombies kind of stuff going on, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff. You could find. You'd have to. I can't. It's hard to analyze yourself. You would probably go, oh, that. There's a lot of major into minor with the zombies. In playing those songs, it's like most of the songs are major. Like there's those transitions a lot. So yeah. I've written a lot of songs major into minor, and rhythm changes where you're speeding up or slowing down or changing the feel. Thank you, Ross. Amazing. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We planted Ross, everyone. Perfect. I'm calling it out, okay? We planted him. Yes.
Hi, Jean. I wanted to say I absolutely loved the optimism of this. I'm with Mr. Music here, and I remember him telling me years ago about the zombies, and he goes, "Where did they go and stuff?" And then all of a sudden, this is tonight, and I've been looking forward to it. And something that I know I'm probably not alone with, that it's like, it's so good to hear about a rock band. I don't, you know, very, like you said, lots of branches off of this story that, you know, You Had Me at Hello, it really moves. But I love that it didn't end in catastrophe or, you know, just, hate to say it, the psychedelic, the drug kind of thing or whatever. I mean, they're, all of them, I mean, Paul obviously died, but it wasn't of anything, that you, yeah, catastrophic, you know, the normal downfall that you can hear with artists. But I loved how they're still going in your story. I love how they're telling these stories. Man, they took the hard knocks, they really did. But they just kept on going, and they're still going. And it's really refreshing to hear them resurface again. Because I have to say, like he was saying, you know, they just left, you know,
Yeah.
and they were right on the heels of the Beatles.
Yeah, they're all still going, by the way. Because even when I went to Chris White's house, I just, you know, you walk around his house, hang out in his studio, his writing room, and you know, he's sitting there with his bass and showing me all his demos, and like he's writing. I want to make this record right now. And then Hugh, you know, lives in Spain, and he plays in he's like walking down the, you know, to the play in the band every day. All of them are making music. Like none of them have stopped, right? So it is really special to have that. It says a lot.
Yeah, especially when, you know, I hate to say it, the business side really took them mad, but it didn't take them down.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful story and very, very lovely told, and I just needed to hear it today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Before we wrap up here, I just want to ask a little bit more about what's going on with you. I mean, you as has been noted, you're a feature filmmaker as well. This is your first documentary. You put out a really nice movie last year, The Good Half. And
Thank you so much. Oh my God, everyone. Whoa.
yeah. No, really enjoyed it. And what else are you working on now? What's coming up?
Yeah, I'd like to. Well, I'm gonna make a new album. So I'm starting to make a new album on the music side, and then starting another documentary. If we want to talk, you guys want to talk about another documentary for
Yeah.
a second? Well, this one's very early days, but this is official because there's a red light on that camera. But no, there's a story that I stumbled into, and I really am excited to tell. But it's the story of Wayne Newton. So I've started this Wayne Newton documentary, and Wayne is incredible. He's playing shows like 4 nights a week in Vegas, and he's on the violin, he's on a slide guitar, I didn't know all that, but I hope you guys eventually get to see this film. But we're in the early days.
We'll do
of
this
it.
again.
It's a music documentary, to answer your point. But yes, I love music docs, and I'm excited to start that film and make another scripted film. Yeah, keep going. Yeah. So
You got to get Wayne Newton to sing "Time of the Season."
well, Wayne came to see. We screened this in Vegas, and he came out, and he felt so connected to the film, and he covered Time of the Season.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
I had a feeling.
Right.
I
That's
don't know.
right. He
It
covered
makes
Time of the
sense.
Season. It's such a interesting that happened, but yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Robert. Wonderful movie. Thanks to the zombies. Thanks to everybody for putting this on.